All right, here we go, Tuesday, February 4th. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Cultivating Ethos show. I am Pastor Scott Furrow. We are on every weekday at 11:30 a.m. right here on K-Praise, and you can catch us every single day on our podcast too, which is a good way to get caught up on the stuff you might have missed earlier in the week. Although I know that's not you, because you don't want to miss any day of our 11:30 show on the radio, because we are your new pre-lunch tradition. And I'm glad to be here with you for that. The Cultivating Ethos show, it's about helping you change your world. And sometimes we help you change your lunch plans too. Hey, visit us at radiochurch.org. That's radiochurch.org for past shows, podcasts, and more. In fact, if you're at your computer or mobile device right now, why don't you head over there, radiochurch.org. You can check us out, follow us on social media, read our blog, check out our store. We have one item in the store, interestingly enough. And you can figure out that we have a podcast blog of every single show right there with some extra information. And you can help support us with your tax-deductible gift at radiochurch.org. That helps us a lot. And everything you do goes to our show development and to our missional development as well. Any amount that God puts on your heart to give is appreciated. It's all tax-deductible. So go to radiochurch.org and do whatever God leads you to do. So today, Tuesday, we gather together in our radio caucus here. It's an opportunity for us to come together, not to choose what fruit of the Spirit we would like, but it doesn't work that way anyway. See, a growing believer has to have all of them and grow in all of those areas, but they don't happen overnight. We grow, and it takes patience. And that's why patience is a fruit of the Spirit. And let's face it, we don't have a lot of patience. It's not really where our culture is at to have patience. We've come to expect things rather instantly. I remember a time as a kid watching television for something called the Ginsu knives. Do you remember those ads for the Ginsu knives? I don't think they even have them anymore. I don't know, and obviously this is a demographic study of our audience, I know, because if you remember that, then you must be around my age. But give me a shout out if you remember those ads on Facebook or Twitter. Will you? I'd love to hear from you. They're kind of funny. In fact, I'll put a video of it on our show blog today at radiochurch.org. You can watch that video of the old Ginsu knife ad. So, the Ginsu knife was this amazing butcher's knife that they would advertise on television all the time, and you could order it. There was no internet, right? And it was basically like television catalog, and you could order it. There were several commercials like this, but the Ginsu knife was one of the most popular ones. And what they would show is this butcher knife cutting through a tin can and then immediately cutting through a tomato perfectly. It didn't dull the knife at all. It was incredible. And the announcer would proudly announce that this is the only knife you will ever need. And then he would say, but that's not all. If you order this knife right now, you get 10 more steak knives. Now you have a complete set of the only knives you will ever need. And if you order in the next hour, we will send you a pocket potato peeler absolutely free. Now how much would you pay? Then at the end of the ad comes the ask, right? This is how it would go. A knife like this normally costs $200 or $300, but you can have it today for only $19.95. But here's the thing. You can't have this knife today, back then with this commercial, and you can't have it tomorrow, and you also can't have it next week. What you did was you ordered the phone over the phone with your credit card, a toll-free 800 number, and then it takes 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. 6 to 8 weeks, that's 2 months. And when you finally get your knives, you forgot you even ordered them in the first place. I mean, that was 2 months ago. Why are these knives showing up? Well, think about that and where we are today, just a few years later, what progress we've made. We have Amazon, that was really cool. You could order online and get it in a few days. Then it went to Amazon Prime. You subscribed to it, and then you got free 2-day shipping. You get whatever your book was or whatever it is you're ordering in 2 days. But that wasn't good enough for our culture. Today, we have Amazon Prime Now. Do you have this? You want your steak knives? You can get them right now. You can get them within 2 hours of clicking buy on your website. In 2 hours with Amazon Prime Now, you get your steak knives delivered by some crazed, constipated delivery driver in an old dented up Kia Sportage who barely makes the 2-hour limit. But hey, you got your knives and you got them in 2 hours. Dinner is saved. Well, you can tell patience and waiting, forbearance, these are not virtues in our culture, but they are with the Spirit of God. And one of the reasons our culture is having so many problems is because it's not a virtue. So we've been talking about faith in the context of our modern times. That's why we call it modern faith. And we're talking about the fruit of the Spirit. And this week we're talking about patience. In Galatians chapter 5:22, It has the fruit of the Spirit. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance or patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. The passage we've been going through this week is James chapter 5, verses 7 through 11. It goes like this. Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. Brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. Above all, my brothers and sisters, do not swear, not by heaven or by earth or by anything else. All you need to say is a simple yes or no. Otherwise, you will be condemned. All right, so in this passage here, we have two words for patience and two different illustrations of patience. Patience with people and patience with suffering. So let's talk about patience with people. In verses 7 to 9, it talks about farmers. And it reminds us that you can't reap right away. The benefits come later and after some work. The word there for patience is macrothumia. Literally, it means long suffering. And then it describes a lack of patience as something. It describes it as grumbling. Have you ever thought about that? I mean, how do you respond when people are disappointing to you or frustrating to you? When we respond with negativity or criticism or gossip or slander, things like that, it's part of grumbling. And it can be done verbally, but it can also be part of our own inner conversation. You ever have conversations with yourself about other people, and you imagine yourself in conversations with other people, telling them theirs and whatever it is? You probably, if you're having a conversation in your mind that's imaginary about somebody else, there's probably something you need to go work out with that other person. Just saying. Well, grumbling, as one scholar likes to point out, it means that you've given up on that other person or some situation. You're not sticking with them. You're detached. You don't seek to get to know them better so you can work through your problems with them. You just resent them. And so you've decided something about them and you've settled on that thing about them, and you give them no opportunity to improve or to prove that your judgment is incorrect or incomplete about them. And what it is a lack of love. It's rooted in self-centeredness. It's something that expresses itself in anger. Often we're yelling and screaming. Sometimes people get violent, and it happens all the time. And this is not patient. Patience is when somebody is frustrating you and you don't give up on them. Instead, you are gracious, you are forgiving, you seek to know them better, you try to find a way to work with them. Think about that. You see, this is how it works in relationships that are functioning correctly. In a marriage, if your spouse is frustrating you sometimes, maybe they're doing it a lot of the time, what we tend to do is we do a lot of grumbling. We do it internally, we sort of grumble to ourselves, and then that's where the problem festers. And then we tell our friends, my wife this and that, or my husband does this and that. We start to badmouth them kind of around to our close-knit friends. It's called gossip. And what we're really doing, though, is we're giving up on our spouse. And we develop bitterness and anger and resentment, and it becomes the norm. And eventually, what's internal grumbling turns into eye rolling, which then turns into cruelty, and then concerns grow, and then you have false assumptions and accusations, and things fall apart. And then you have a fight. And in a marriage or in any relationship, when you're fighting and you're grumbling, you're fighting to win. You're not fighting to find resolution. You see, that's impatience. Patience is fighting for your marriage, getting help if you need it, disciplining yourself to listen and understand to your spouse or whoever it is that you're grumbling about. And then when you have your fight, your disagreement, your argument, what you do is you fight to find resolution. You try to get to the other side and resolve the issues. And when you do, everything is so much better. You see, patience gives us that ability to move through all the difficulties that we have to get to the other side where things are better, where things are improved. That's the sign of a growing and healthy marriage. It's the sign of a growing and healthy friendship. It's the sign of a great workplace environment when people can do that between boss and employee or employee and employee, wherever you find yourself. That kind of patience, it really helps. And it helps with our testimony as believers. That's why it's a fruit of the Spirit. The other kind of patience is patience with suffering. He gives us the example of Job. It says, brothers, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we consider blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. You see, Job experienced tragic circumstances. He lost his children, his wealth, And then he got a disease, he lost his health. And he's screaming and crying out, but he's also looking for an answer. He's not just grumbling about it, he's looking to move through it. Where do I go? The word here for patience is a different Greek word. It's upamone. It literally means to hyperstand in place. It means endurance or perseverance in the hardest of circumstances. It's the idea that you're on your last stand, and if you lose the battle, if you give any more, you're going to lose everything, so you're just going to stand in place. This is a different kind of patience. It's the patience that we need to keep being the person that we ought to be anyway, regardless of our circumstances. It's to stay put and not give up when things get hard. Impatience is when we act out, when we get bitter, when we get angry and childish. It's being full of self-pity and refusing to consider other opinions. Well, nobody wants to be around that person, and we don't want to be that person. Impatience destroys your life much more than a frustrating person will or a difficult circumstance. It's because when you're impatient, you lose relationships and you lose purpose. You lose your testimony ultimately, and your whole life, your whole world becomes all about you, and everyone else notices, and everything breaks down. It doesn't function right. You see why patience is so important, why James uses such strong language to talk about it? Patience is responding to people with grace and understanding. And patience is also responding to circumstances with strength and trust in God. This is what the Holy Spirit is developing in you and I. And many of us have a long way to go. So how are you doing? Remember, you don't make yourself patient. The godly strength to be patient with each other, to be patient in affliction, is something that God is working with you on. You're not alone, and you don't get there overnight. It's like a farmer. You got to plant the seeds, you got to water it, you got to cultivate it, and it takes time. We're going to keep talking about this week, but for now, what I want you to do is pray and ask God to supernaturally help you in this area with the person that you're thinking about as I talk about this, or with the situation that you're in that is on your mind and weighing on your heart. You are not alone. God is with you, and you can pray and ask God for supernatural help in dealing with all of these things so that you don't lose your testimony, you don't lose your relationships, you don't lose your hope or your purpose, and you grow in patience. Hey friends, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, and to get some interaction, you can call me or text me at 619-736-0882. You can even call or text at any time if you're listening on the podcast, 619-736-0882. You can go on social media, find us by looking for Cultivating Ethos, and click like or follow. Or go to radiochurch.org where you can find everything you need to know about this program. If you are enjoying our program, and or even if you're not enjoying this program, hey, you're listening, so I got you right here with me, and maybe somebody else you know would enjoy this program. We would love to have your financial support. Your gift of any amount is helpful. It's all tax deductible. Cultivating Ethos is a 501c3 nonprofit, and you can actually give a one-time gift of any amount, or you can give monthly, and there's different ways to do that on our website. Go to radiochurch.org. We have a Patreon site, if you're familiar with that. You can find that at radiochurch.org as well. And what that does is it allows you to become a member of our program, where you get some other fun stuff and some behind-the-scenes videos and some interaction with me and other listeners. It's a lot of fun. Just remember radiochurch.org, and if you're in front of your computer or mobile device right now, why don't you go to radiochurch.org, check it out, and if the Lord is leading you to give any amount, please do that. It would be very, very helpful, and I thank you for it. I'm Pastor Scott Furrow. I'll be back with you tomorrow on the Cultivating Ethos show right here on K-Praise.